Alright, so a little while ago I told Runner Watcher I was going to make a hover kind of tutorial, how-to thing a little bit. Just basically my kind of thoughts on the technique and what helped me learn when I was starting out, trying to learn how to do this. Because I really wished there was something like this when I was starting out. I kind of had to beat my head against the wall for a long time. But all this to say, it was pretty fun practicing, especially once I started not falling into the pit every time, and I just kept practicing, and I got to the point where now it's, I don't know, I like to think it's pretty easy for me. So I figured if I could, I would try to help people, whoever, maybe understand a little bit better, what works for me, how I do it. Maybe it'll work for you. So I guess I'll just go ahead and start out. I kind of made some notes for myself a little bit, but not really, so this is probably going to be super disjointed, and I'm thinking of this more as like a rough draft. I'll probably redo it later. So first off, I guess I'll start by explaining what it is. Like, what is hovering? Well, I kind of just wander around the overworld. Hovering is essentially a manipulation of the dash mechanic, wherein people used to think it was like a frame perfect trick. It's not really. It's like every other frame perfect, or however you would describe that. I'm not super sure. Because basically what you're doing is you're starting a dash charge. I guess I can kind of just show it right here. You're going to start a dash charge, and you're going to let it go before it actually charges. Like, it's okay, you can see here I'm holding down A and I'm starting to dash, and this entire time I would be able to, I would not be falling. Like, this whole time I'm holding A down. It's not until I actually start to dash like that that it's a problem. And I'm not 100% sure exactly how many frames that is. I want to say it's 31 or 32 that you start dashing. So you have anywhere between like 1 and 30 or 31 frames that you can hold A. But the important thing, or what people think is frame perfect, is when you let go, or when you release A, you can only release it for 1 frame before you have to pick the dash back up, or you're going to start falling. That's how I understand it. I'm not 100% sure that's 100% correct. Please correct me or whatever if you know better than I do, because I'm definitely not a tasser or anything. So, but that's how I understand it. So, okay, that doesn't really explain much to you. I mean, yeah, frame-wise, like, I guess if you were tassing this, how you would do it. But so how does that actually, what's the, application there? And so basically, the way I do it is I take my hand like this. Let's see if I can figure out where it is. All right. So you can kind of see. I'm going to, normally playing like this or whatever, and then I'm going to take and I'm going to rotate the controller so that my left thumb is going to be working the D-pad. That's just what's comfortable for me. I kind of, this fat pad of my hand kind of sits up against this corner of the controller here, and it just kind of, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, like just kind of like that, how it just kind of pushes together there. It just kind of locks in place. I don't know, it helps me keep it stable. That was tough for me at first. But basically what I do is I just take these 2 fingers, and I'm going to use my thumb to kind of brace my index finger, and I'm going to put my fingers about this far apart. Let's see if you can see it very well. Okay. So you can't, I don't know, you can kind of see a little bit. My camera sucks. But my fingers are not a whole button width apart. I think I incorrectly explained that to Runner Watcher recently, where I had my fingers a whole button apart. It's not quite that far apart, and if you're going to be having your fingers that far apart, you're going to notice, like, he's moving too far. Like, he's just moving too far every time. You're just going to fall. And so what I think of it as is, so you got your fingers here on the button, and kind of where your fingernails start to roll over is where I like to meet the button. So, like, I have a gap between my fingers, but it's really small. And at that point, it's all pretty much timing, pressure, and really any spacing can work. It's just a combination of those 3 things: spacing, timing, and pressure. More so spacing and timing. Pressure is kind of, it depends on your face buttons more than anything. And so, essentially, that's it, Yeah, it sounds easy, whatever. But really the tough thing that was, for me starting out, and same thing Runner Watcher and a few other people have said, I think, is that, okay, so for like the first however long you're practicing, all you're doing is falling in a hole. You have no idea if you're doing anything right, you're doing anything wrong. So it helps a lot to be able to tell on solid ground where you're not actually hovering what it's supposed to look like. And so the way I kind of try to tell is when Link is standing here and I'm trying to just like whatever solid ground hover, that's about as much as I want to be moving. It's okay for Link to bounce a little bit, but you really want to err on the side of him not even bouncing at all. Like, you really just want to see his hand, his left hand, just kind of like he's jerking off or something, or shiggling around, I'm not really sure. And his shield just bouncing up and down. Like, very small, you know, you don't, oops, I'll show what happens too if you accidentally map hover. So yeah, there's that, and then here's right side, left side, and then facing up. Personally, I think facing up and down are better to tell at first. There's just more going on with the sprite. There's more difference in between good and bad hovering, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So that's what works for me. But you know, starting out, it's gonna also be hard. You know, okay, so you got the hover movement here, right? But now you got to throw on the D-pad, and that's part of why I grip the controller the way I do, is because for me it's really easy for me to move my thumb anywhere on the D-pad. I can go diagonals, I can do whatever I want, and it's not going to shift the controller in my hand, because that was pretty critical. Like when I started out hovering, it was like, okay, I can do downs fine, but if I have to put my finger anywhere else, well, I lose my grip and I can't do anything. I guess that'll take me to controllers or buttons. This is kind of more a story than anything. So when I started trying to learn how to do this, I was watching a lot of Jaden playing no EG and just trying to kind of just assimilate as much of his skill as possible. And I found a paste bin that he had in his profile at the time that was talking about a certain kind of face buttons that he was using that I ended up buying a couple pairs of, and I absolutely love, or not pairs, I guess, whatever, button sets. And you can't find them anymore, at least not that I know of. I got a couple pairs, or a couple sets from, like 2 sets from Flower Game, or whatever, the eBay seller that Jaden posted. And then I managed to find like 2 more sets, like a couple months later on Ali Parts Express or something like that, but I can't find those anymore either. They're pretty expensive anyway, and honestly, I don't really think they're totally necessary once you get the basics down. But one thing he mentioned was that they're not too stiff for hovering, which is really important at first. Like when I started out, I actually had this Hori controller, this Hori fighting game controller with it has the L and right on the face here, as they're left and right on the face, as opposed to on the triggers up here. And those were incredibly loose. Like, they were so soft that I actually can't use them anymore. I just dash constantly. But at first, it was really important. Like, I couldn't hover on any other controllers. It was just too stiff for me. And that's, you know, I guess another thing, too, is that everything that I'm saying, all this, is going to be useless if you don't practice this. Like, I literally spent 5 hours my first day trying to learn how to do this, just walking into a hole. Like, that was just all I did for, like, an entire day. You know, and it sucked, but there's not really any other way than beating your head against the wall, because you're going to be building some forearm muscle endurance. I mean, at least if you do it as much as I do, you're going to, you know, this is going to start to actually tax your arm, and you're going to need that, because this motion here, it's hard to do when you're not used to it. It's a very small motion, it's very controlled, and it's just not something that, I don't know, unless maybe you're like a shred on guitars or something. I'm not really sure what would develop that other than just practicing. So yeah, I personally think that at this point face buttons aren't a huge issue, but I would err on the side of looser face buttons at first that don't require as much pressure to push down, simply because it's going to wear your arm out less and you're going to be able to kind of get more out of your practice. Because I really, you know, I said I beat my head against the wall for like 5 hours or whatever the first day, but there was, you know, I think I was just going straight at the Moldorm 2 pit, and I made it across like 1 time, and I was super pumped about it, but I burned my arm out for like 2 days, and I don't really think you can get too much out of practicing this for more than like an hour. You know, don't don't get discouraged. Don't beat your head against the wall. If you think you're not making any progress, go work on something else. I'm a big proponent of having a lot of things that you're working on so that you don't ever get super bogged down in the one thing and start building bad muscle memory. I don't know. People are different about that. There's a lot of like grinders and then like people like me where I just kind of marinate on stuff. But yeah, that's what I think is pretty important as far as the buttons. Technique, I kind of talked a little bit about already. It's just, for me, it's three things. It's spacing, pressure, and the speed at which you're moving your hand. I guess it'll be a little bit more relevant here in a second. Once I get done kind of explaining things here, I have my game saver set to the Moldorm 2 room. And that was actually a really good place for me to practice at first because I have a pretty heavy rhythm gaming background. And so audio cues are really big for me. Having a sound or something kind of like an assist tick or a metronome, whatever you would call it, to follow was super helpful at first. And for me, it seemed kind of, I don't know, I can't think of the right word here. It was pretty nuts though. I noticed that the Moldorm noise, his rattle that he's making, is really close to the sound you want your fingers to be making on the buttons. I guess that's another thing too. I'll show you real quick. Jaden is the only person I've ever known or heard of that's been able to successfully hover with fingertips. I think it's completely nuts. More power to him for him being able to do it, but I cannot do it that way. So this, I feel like, is kind of important to show. These are my fingers. Kind of focus on them. There you go. These are the fingers I'm going to be using to hover. If you can tell, my nails are extremely short. Yeah, I keep them pretty tight. And then you're going to want to invest in one of these. This is an emery board. I don't know if it's something that a lot of dudes have or whatever. They don't cost anything, and this is going to be super important for keeping your nails in shape for doing this. I like to have them smooth. I don't want them catching on the buttons. It just makes it easier for me. And I think that if you're going to try to do something that's precise, you kind of want to get all your ducks in a row. You want to consider all possible variables, grip, nails, hands, all this stuff. You want to be considering everything. So that's something that was important for me that maybe people do or don't think about. Yeah, so back to technique, I guess. So it's the three things. It's spacing, pressure, and speed. And I kind of already talked about spacing, where I like to have my fingers about like this. Where if you can see, yeah, there you go. Okay, that's a little bit better. You can see the gap between my fingers, and like if I start, this isn't how I would hold it, but this is the gap right here. Like this is what I would be doing. And basically, it's like I said earlier, where your fingernails start to kind of roll over at the ends. I like that to kind of be meeting the edge of the buttons. I mean, this is just, I don't know, this is what I do. But depending on how I'm feeling, some days my arm's just more or less tired than others. Generally, if my arm's really amped or something, like I just feel like I'm just, I don't know, going a million miles an hour, I'm super pumped up, I put my fingers closer together because it allows me to go faster and still achieve the same result. Conversely, when you're starting out especially, I think it's hard to go as fast as is optimal. You're going to be doing more slow, what I call slow hovers, where basically when I talked about that 30 frame window that you have to start a dash, ideally you're not using all 30 frames, you're using one. But you can use up to 30, and if you're using, I don't know, more than 15, I'm going to call that a slow hover or whatever. We'll just draw that line, I guess. And so basically, it's easier for me to do fast hovers with my fingers farther apart and going faster versus closer together. And it's I don't know, it's hard to not just start your dash, I guess. Yeah, trying to think of what else I wanted to talk about. That was pretty much it. Spacing, pressure, speed, find what works for you. That was what worked for me. But you really are just going to want to experiment. You're going to want to figure out your own technique. I mean, as far as I know, I'm the only person that grips the controller like this when I do it. From what I understood, everyone else is pretty much doing kind of like an Ivan thing, I think. something like this. I don't know. There's a really great tutorial video he did where he put his camera in his mouth. It was pretty cool. But he does something like this where he flips the controller the other way. I don't know how you would operate a D-pad like that. But if you're only doing the Mold Arm 2 hover, that doesn't really matter. It's just down. That's all you want. So yeah, I guess moving on to the next thing, I'll talk about, where do you even do this, okay? And I just so happen to be in the first place that I do it. Not this room specifically. This is actually the room I came here because I intended to kind of, I don't know. This is like my training room. And like that, okay, you could see that was a slow hover. That was like, as much as I was bouncing up and down, the more you're bouncing up and down or making the dash noise, the slower you're going to be moving. Ideally, you're not making the dash noise at all. You're just, it just never, you never hear the sound. But so anyway, first place I like to hover, oops, gotta hit that switch, is actually, and I think it's probably slower most of the time unless I get a really good hover, but I don't know, I kind of just like to do it, is to get the Moon Pearl. And I guess I can kind of show too how I don't know, flip into grip, I guess. So okay, I'm coming in here, I'm going to grab this heart because I'm a pussy, and I dash up here, and then as I dash up, you'll see I flip my grip over. They gave me an opportunity where I'm not doing anything else to get in grip position, and now from basically here, I'm just going to be hovering. Probably a little higher up ideally, but... And then you're going to get up here. Okay, I fell in the hole because I was actually trying to show that you can just stop there if the... I don't know, the timing for the spark is kind of hard. And rather than... I don't know. I guess it depends on what you're more comfortable with, but rather than, like, I don't know, Andy did it in low percent, I think. Everyone freaked out, where he got to the edge and he got to the spark, and he turned around in the pit. Which, if that's easier for you, that's fine. But you can just as easily, okay, I'm moving forward, and I just stop pushing the D-pad. You can just wait. You just hang out here. Yeah, I mean, you have to be good at hovering, I guess, to do that, but that's not the point of this. So, okay, there's the first place. I guess it would probably, it'll probably be worth it for me to just show the second one real quick, and then the rest I'll just talk about until I get to Ganon's Tower, and I'll just go ahead and show those. Or, well, I'll show Mold Arm 2. The other one's really not. You don't have to hover it. This is another one that's pretty big for me in no EG. Oops. I guess I can, real quick, just do key skip. Oops, not real quick. Fast forward this part or something. I gotta learn a sword buffer. Free pixel. Oh, crap. Alright, this is not going well. I guess this is what happens when I don't warm up. That's 5, 6, 7. Okay, yeah. Woof. That was bad. Alright, whatever. So, now we're in Dark Palace like we would be in no EG, and that's kind of important. None of these are really useful outside of no EG. At least they're not the fastest ways to do it. The hammer hover, I'm going to show you here real quick, to me is useful as a bailout. Like if you screw up your bomb placement, you don't make the jump the first time, and you're running low on bombs for some reason. Actually, I'll stop here for a second. If you're running low on bombs for some reason, you can just do the hammer hover. But I want to show this too. Like for no EG, okay, so again, comes to, okay, you can hover now, but you don't want to have to every time you get to the edge of a pit, like, okay, pretend this is a pit, and you're running up here and like, oh god, all right, now I got to get my grip, and here 5 seconds later I can start hovering. You don't want it to take that long. It's not useful. So like when I get to this room, flip my grip, and then I just got used to doing like this. And I get over here, and you'll notice I started hovering a little bit early. just so I can get my X position right. I mean, it's a dash buffer, you know, so you can use it to do that kind of stuff. And then here, shout outs to Prismix, I guess. I haven't seen him around in a while, but this is something I saw him just post up a couple months ago, and I thought it was really cool, and I really wanted to integrate it into my runs, so I did. And I guess for me, the cues I use, because it helps, I feel like, to start in a certain place on the bridge for this, because it's a 1 pixel trick. There's only, as far as I know, there's one X pixel that you can go up on that will allow you to move into the hammer area and not push you out, whatever. And I guess I'll try to show, I don't know, I don't really have a good way of showing exactly what that pixel is. I'll try to describe what my cue is, and then this is where I start. So like, okay, I think of like basically things that are the size of a link. So it's like, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those tiles. And then I kind of just want to center on this, you can't see my arrow, this line here. So you're like 5.5, actually, no, that's too high. Okay, this one. So yeah, you're like 5.5 of those things up. And then from there, just start your hover, and then it's just a diagonal movement until you get, okay, that was 1 pixel too far to the left. So what it is that rail on the right, you basically want to have Link's ear 1 pixel off of the leftmost edge of that rail. So like the black edge, you want Link's ear right up against that, you know, right next to it. Not on it, not 1 pixel away, you want it right next to it. And to me, this is the easiest place to start to get it. Okay, I'm already turned sideways, that's bad. Okay, this isn't going very well. And that's why, for me, I'm not getting my spot. It's hard. Oops, yeah, that's going poorly. All right, I'm going to go to heart. No, I can't get a heart. What am I doing? There we go. God, that was abominable. All right, but hopefully you were able to see that. And then the other important thing is that you get Link up this high. Like this, you'll see his shadow has to be above the bottom rail. If you're not above the bottom rail, you'll just get pushed out. So yeah, you just want to come up that high, and then once you're above this bottom rail, you just start moving left. And you just want to get inside the rail pretty much before you stop. Play with it if you want, or don't. Keep in mind this is only useful in no EG. If you want to skip picking up bombs and you're ballsy as hell, because in no major glitches or any other category, you'd be bombing out this wall. So skipping the menu wouldn't save you anything. You would still need to have bombs out anyway, and it would be completely worthless. If you, for say, some reason, try double bomb jump, you screw up the position, you don't make it over here, then okay, yeah, you could come up here and hover. I've done it before in no major glitches. If you're daring, it works, whatever. Yeah, let's see, after Dark Palace, there's Skullwoods. You can hover over the pit if that's how you do it. I'm not a huge fan of that one. I do it pretty much for swag, but the nice thing about the bomb jump there is the Moldorms can't hurt you for your invulnerability while you're getting moved by the bomb. If you're hovering, you can just get bounced back in the pit by them, and it sucks. So then you're taking 2 hearts, whatever. Obviously, Ice Palace, I really like hovering there because I like to be able to switch to hammer early, and yeah, I mean, I pretty much, bomb jump is hard for me there. It's hard to get the lineup quick enough that you're not going to get hit by the fire bar and negate that heart. It's really easy for me to hover across that fast and just skip the fire bar altogether. That's not a big deal. And then there's Mire, if you're familiar with the All Dungeons route. Additionally, if you're doing Gold Sword route, you can hover over to the bridge if you're super daring. Actually, that's what I try to do. And it saves you like, I don't know, like half a second compared to dashing or walking underneath and walking up to the bridge when it starts falling. And then you're going to go up, run up, grab the cane, and then you're going to walk back down or whatever, however you get back to about the middle of the room. And then you're just going to hover over to that door and go across, and I don't know, if you know what I'm talking about, you know the route, and I'm not going to keep going into it. All right, and then I'll just go ahead and show the last one, I mean, there's actually another one here. I dropped all my bombs, and so I, don't have to switch or whatever. But I wanted to use this. I wanted to come here because you can hear Molderm's rattle, that kind of shaking noise that he's making. That noise was the noise that I tried to emulate with my controller at first. That was really useful to me to do. Honestly, now I think I move a little bit faster than that. So, adjust your spacing accordingly, whatever. But at first, the Moldorm rattle noise was really important. Oh, I guess, and this is the other thing. I'd show that, okay, so when I come into this room, I use screen transitions a lot, like door transitions like that, to switch my grip. You get a second, and it's a really nice time. And you pretty much just have to figure out how you're going to do the room up to the hover with your hand like this, which in this instance is super easy. Come through the door, you dash. Hopefully Moldorm's not a super dick, like that. If he is, I recommend come down here, and if he's coming at you, dash to the right, and then start it. But ideally, he's just going to let you go across over here. It's worth noting that if you fall here, I think it's here, you're not going to get hurt. You got this space here. But if you start and you dash or whatever, you try to hover on the right side and you screw up, if you don't get far enough, you're going to take damage every time. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit safer to start on the left side. Oh, and I guess that's cool. I can show that off. All right. So, all right, and I've noticed this happen to a lot of people as they're practicing, and it, I guess can be kind of demoralizing or whatever, but like, okay, you're starting your hover, whatever, boom, you hit the map. Oh, that sucks, it's going to be hard for you to recover. You're probably just going to fall in the pit. So what I do is, all right, I'm trying to hover down in this instance, so when I'm coming out of the map, I'm going to be holding up. I'm just going to be trying to go back toward the platform. I'm just going to keep hovering, And to me, that's the safest way if you screw up. You just try to move back toward where you started, try to take advantage of whatever ledge you're on, because this isn't going to happen to you in the middle of a hover. This is going to happen at the beginning. So just try to move back toward the ledge and just commit to it. Just keep hovering. That's really the only advice I can give. Yeah, I think that's about it. I can't really think of much else. Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to post this one. I'm probably just going to use this to do my next one. But yeah, so that's about it. That's cool. I didn't know that happened. Huh. Learn something new every day. So yeah, I mean, that's basically hovering in a nutshell. To sum up, practice a lot. If you want to be good at this, you got to practice, especially this, because this requires muscle coordination and endurance. Yeah, this whole game is tough to learn and takes a lot of practice, but this actually takes, unless you're like some guitarist or a pianist or you play a lot of instruments or something and you just have super awesome manual dexterity, you're going to need to practice this. So, yeah, practice a lot, find a controller you like. It's worth going online, and I'm not a big proponent of just buying random Super Famicom controllers. I think that's kind of silly, because 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get one that's even close to new, or not used. Obviously they're not going to be new, but you're not going to find a lot of new ones. And generally the only reason in my mind you're buying a Super Famicom controller as opposed to just replacement buttons or something, or replacement pads, is because you want a better D-pad. Like, it's from what I understand, everything I've heard, the original Nintendo D-pads that came with the Super Nintendos, if they're not broken into shit and super worn out, they're the best ones. Actually, right now, I'm using, it's one of the white ones that came with the Flower Game pads I was talking about earlier, the ones Jaden recommended. I really like those. They don't wear out super fast. It's worth saying that I've worn out 3 controllers at this point, 3 sets of, not all the face buttons obviously, but the A and Y buttons. I've worn out 3 sets of them practicing, and that's going to happen. I mean, if you practice this a lot, that's just going to happen. Yeah, I've actually bought, they're like $2.50 USB controllers, just complete pieces of shit. But the pads in them really aren't that bad for face buttons. The D-pads are worthless, but the face buttons aren't terrible. So if you're completely out of options, if you have no other way to get different buttons, you know, those are worth it. And I'm not even going to bother saying what brand or whatever, because it's not like a brand. It's like the ones that come in the e-packet from China if you're on eBay. You know, they're like $3. They're super cheap, and for what you're paying, I don't really think you can really be too critical of the buttons themselves. Actually, I can just go ahead real quick. I swapped out. This is another controller I have that I actually swapped out with the buttons I was just talking about. The dollar face pads or whatever. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can tell. Let's see if I can show this. They're not totally. I don't know how that works even. How they're not level. Like they don't sit in level like the original ones. But it's really not a big deal. I don't know. Not for me anyway. So I'll just go ahead and show real quick because they are different. They're definitely different to hover on, but not so different that it really makes it's gonna kill you. You just gotta practice. If you're gonna be using different controller, you just gotta practice. I would never attempt to hover on a controller like in any real situation that I didn't know. You know, I would definitely have my own that I was using. I wouldn't just try to take somebody else's controller and hover on it. I mean, I would try that just for fun, but I'm not saying I would say I wouldn't do it in a run. Like in any situation where your outcome actually matters. But yeah, I'll try to just show real quick here. They're kind of similar. You'll notice though, yeah, for one thing I didn't make it, and two, I was going slower for sure. Like, I just have to press kind of differently, and my timing is such that it's good on that controller, not so much on this one. God, Molder, I'm such a dick. But yeah, I have to press a little bit. You know, my pressure is a little bit different. Okay, that was weird. I don't know why he didn't start his dash. Yeah, it's just different. But hopefully you can hear when I'm hovering, and you can hear some of the game sound. Those two noises are really similar. The whatever you would call it, the BPM, or I wish I could try to think what that BPM is even. Like, I don't know, like 16ths at around 200? Maybe a little slower than that. Like 190, I don't know. If that for like the 3 people in this community, that's going to make sense too. Yeah, I mean, just try to emulate that sound at first if that works for you. But all this to say, find something that works. You know, practice. Try different controllers if you got them. You know, if you're having trouble with one, don't worry about trying another one. Yeah, practice. Do this a lot. Build up your arms. It's going to be important. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and cut it there.